Introducing the all-new Western Enforcer V-Plow. Engineered with all the features, efficiency, and performance of full-size Western V-Plows, built specifically for your half-ton truck. For more information, visit westernplows.com.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. You know there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. I have with me special guest, Boris Desancic with Ascent Wealth Strategies. I'm glad you're on the show. Thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about your business?
Yeah, this is, I'm a founder, owner of Ascent Wealth Strategies. We're a wealth management firm that works specifically, almost entirely actually, with business owners, successful business owners. You know, the typical business owner works for us, typically nets, whether it's net profit, net earnings, net revenue, whatever you want to call it, about 2 million plus. And they come to us typically because they're struggling in one of the areas, such as, we're making great money, but we're paying too much in taxes, right? So can we do some more advanced tax planning, or, asset protection, or advanced estate planning for legacy, or M&A, mergers and acquisitions, and exiting at one point, whether it's internal or external. And then like any other financial or wealth management firms, we manage money for our clients. We do insurance for our clients and so forth. So,
and you've been doing this a long time. Over 20 years.
I've been in business now. It's third decade actually. Yeah, so it's almost 30. Yeah, I think this is 30th to 31st year now.
You've been advising people on their finances since
3 decades. Yeah,
since most people are just started their business, right? So you got a lot of history in this, and that's awesome. And we work together, and that's a great relationship. And I think that one of the biggest misses that any business owner has is planning for the future.
Sure, in many different ways.
This is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think even like in my own business, how much money is it actually going to take to retire? And then more so than that, like how much money is it going to take to live the same quality of life that I'm living today?
Sure.
Because a lot of costs get rolled up and hidden into your business.
Well, and for any business owner, and you know this as well, whether you have one entity or multiple entities, right? The majority of our liquidity, our asset, or liquid or illiquid assets, are tied in our businesses.
Yeah.
So at one point, did we think about what's my vision of the future? At which point do I want to exit? How I want to cash some things out, right? What amount of money do I put on the side even while I'm running the business is important.
Yeah.
And you find that, and this as business owners, we're all very good at running, especially successful people, right? We're very good at running day-to-day operation, right? Mm-hmm. But what we tend to lose the sight of is what is my ultimate vision? What's the ultimate legacy? What is what is that going to look like years down the road? You mentioned retirement. That's only one aspect of that, right? So it's extremely important to plan for the future, to have the right vision, and then the right structure to implement things.
82%. I saw a statistic from Harvard Business Review that came out, I think it was just this morning or yesterday morning. 82% of businesses will fail because of poor financial management.
Sure. First 5 years. Yeah, that's a correct statistic.
82% will fail because of poor financial management. That is huge. So I'll rewind my own clock 10 years ago, and I'm in business, and I'm I need to get better people. And I need to hire better people. It's not saying the people that I had then weren't the best, but I needed a higher caliber of employee. And so I needed to add a 401k because competitors had a 401k, and we brought in a 401k person, not knowing anything about it. and they gave us a presentation, and they said, if you are 35 years old and you want to have $3 million in the bank when you retire, and that's going to give you $70,000 a year in liquid income, you need to start saving 15% right now.
Sure.
And that was a huge, light bulb moment. Like, I haven't saved anything.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody told me I had to save 15%. What do you mean? And I think that's a huge moment. And then I think a second huge moment that I had was just in our conversations. And you mentioned taxes early on, but what I don't think that I understood was if I died and I left my wife and kids, that the tax amount that we were going to have to pay on our estate, our business, was going to basically put them in the poorhouse.
Well, sure, if you have to sell a bunch of assets, right? And those are multiple different things. So
They're two different things.
Yeah, maybe we unpack those, let's start with your first thing, what you said, retirement, putting away 15%, right? Interesting enough, as a business owner, I know as an employee, 15% of the paycheck seems a lot to people, right? But as business owners, especially when you start being successful, by successful, I mean, you start, a lot of times netting now 7 figures, right?
Sure.
You now have the capital to do a lot of different things and build a lot of different assets. And some of those assets should be retirement assets as well. Yep. And interesting enough, as a successful business owner, you now, especially if you're in your late 40s or 50s or 60s, you can now start putting away $200,000, $300,000, maybe even $400,000 away,
right?
In your retirement packages, that you just have to know how to do that from the tax perspective, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would agree with you. From the get-go, as you're building the business initially, you have to have an idea as to not only how you're going to expand and build your business and what are those day-to-day operations going to be looking like from the financial perspective, but also you have got to start putting money away at the same time, whether it's for your future or whether it's for the future of the business, whether it's expansion or M&A or other things that you have to do, especially fortifying your business, in the years to come. Right? So that's one thing. The other thing that you mentioned was taxes. When I think of taxes, I think of taxes from sort of two different perspectives. Our federal income or state income taxes.
Yep.
While we're making the money, while we're successful, and our profits and what they're taxed on. And then the second one is really the tax on my legacy.
Yeah.
Right. On both of those. Right. So the first one, and this is interesting as well. I think that most business owners, I think they do a very good job of managing their taxes up to about probably making maybe $500,000 a year.
Okay.
Because that's what in tax planning you call the level 1 tax planning, where people are taking the credits and like QBI deductions, and they have employee benefits, and they employ their family, and they do all the expenses, basic depreciation of equipment or real estate, whatnot, right? Where we're noticing what's lacking is that once businesses start making that, approaching the $1 million or $1.5 million or $2 million plus, there's very little attention given to proactive tax planning. Mm-hmm. So for example, let me give you an example. Somebody making $3 million. Yep. What if I were to tell you that person probably, if they structure things correctly, can probably reduce their taxable revenue by probably about $1 million to $1.5 million. Mm. Right? But people just don't know how to do that.
Right.
And legally, I mean, we're not talking about anything that's out of bounds here, right? So I think, we talked about, building assets into retirement, right? The second aspect, how do you become very tax efficient so that you have an available asset, cash, to put into other items as opposed to having a very big tax bill come due every single year. And then one thing that you said, the third thing is really, estate taxes, right? Which is really due on a date of the second death. But, the biggest tax in the United States is an estate tax.
Right.
For a successful business owner that has majority of that asset, let's say you own a business that's $20, $30, $40 million worth. 50 million, right? Well, if that's majority of what you have, and you know that if something were to happen to you or you and your spouse, that 40% of that is going to have to be paid in estate taxes, how would you feel about your legacy? Right?
Not good.
Right. So I've worked most of my life, became very successful, built a beautiful business or multiple different businesses.
Yeah.
Only that if I don't do some serious planning, the 40% is going to go away.
Right.
Right. So then that vision of what we talked about, having a vision for your business is not about just how do I fortify my business right now, then how do I minimize my taxes, but it's also how do I structure my legacy correctly so that ultimately future generations going to have the fruits of my labor as well. So it's multiple different aspects.
Yeah, this is great stuff. So, as an entrepreneur, as somebody growing their business, what would you say is the most important thing that somebody should focus on? Maybe they've got that $10 million business, that $15 million business, and they're starting to hit those, 2 million, million and a half in net revenues. What do they need to be doing?
Oh, multiple different. That's
an open-ended
question. Yeah, we can talk. Right.
What are the top things that you would do?
I think outside of really, I think we will come back on talk about fortifying your business, for the recessions and things of that nature. We can come back and talk about it in a second. But I think the areas that really do need to be covered is, like we said, number one, learn how to become extremely tax efficient. Because when you do that and learn how to do that, and now we're talking about numbers of, million, $2 million, $3 million, right? That all of a sudden that becomes available to you in cash that you can deploy to other things that are important in your business. So number one to me is learn how to do that. Number two, all of us as business owners are constantly exposed. Well, you know that as well as anybody else, are exposed to lawsuits. We live in a litigious society.
Yep.
Number two, if I have a successful business or multiple businesses, know how to asset protect your businesses. Know how to cover your I would say cover your butt from that perspective.
Yep.
That is incredibly important, right? Number three is understand what your ultimate vision is going to be. And now we're talking not about businesses who are being built. We're talking about successful businesses. How do you want to exit this?
Yeah.
I got to tell you, all of us, I don't care how big a business you build, we're going to exit this in one shape or form, right?
Right.
Whether it's through us being gone, death, or intentionally.
Right.
Then have the vision. How are you going to exit? Are you going to exit internally? Or are you going to exit externally? And then once you know that, how do you actually build the business to a point that will allow you to exit for the value that you ultimately want to exit? Right. Now, I said some of the things that are most important things financially. There are obviously other items such as, become lean, become more efficient, have enough cash for the expansion, build the technology, know how to hire the right people, know what your inventory is, and so forth and so on, right? So those are sort of what I call day-to-day stuff. But since today we're talking about more of a sort of visionary type of stuff, more bigger things, right? That's why I mentioned those three items.
I think that these are three fantastic items to focus on. One of the challenges that I think a business owner faces is time. Time is the most important thing to all of us. But I think what happens is okay, you just told me, if I'm listening on the call, you told me, hey, get tax efficient so that you have cash that's deployable. I get that. Okay. What's my vision, that I'm going to have here? And then how do I asset protect? I know that asset protect was number 2 and, my vision was number 3. But I'm looking at those three things. And if I'm sitting here on the call and even if I'm doing $1 to $2 million in gross revenue and I'm dreaming, if my vision is to be that $10 million guy or whatever, I'm sitting here thinking, gosh, how do I find the person that's going to help me do all three of these things? All three of them seem vastly different. And because time is so important, hey, do I put out the fire at my workplace? I just lost a key employee. My wife is sick. Time. And I think that these things are great ideas, but time slips away.
Of course.
And it's like you need a quarterback. It's really like you need someone to
to point you in the right direction, right?
Right.
To get all those pieces
Yeah,
together.
you need support.
And you hear, listen, and you are absolutely correct on that. I mean, it's, and these are just three things, right?
Right.
We can talk about.
There's 3 podcasts worth.
I mean, we can talk about 50 other things that
Sure,
people are dealing
sure.
with, so there's only so much time in the day, right? I would say to everybody 2 things. Number 1, if you are a business owner who is learning and growing and trying to achieve those levels of $1 million, $2 million, right?
Yep.
Initially, right? I think one of the best things that business owners can do, join other professional groups that actually congregate business owners from different fields that once a month or once every 2 weeks or once a quarter, of different groups do it differently, will talk about items they're working on the business and not in the business. Right?
Yeah, peer groups.
And peer groups are, and there are some great ones, there are some okay ones. There's, you never know. You need to go and test a few of them, right? But I think the number one thing I would say to any brand new owner is join one of these peer groups that will force you to deal with the items that you typically don't have time to deal with.
I like that. Peer groups are good.
I know in your past you've been a member of these. I can't remember all the names right now, but Vistage is one, right?
Vistage,
what are the other
EO,
ones?
YPO.
Exactly right.
These are those are probably the 3 most popular
on that side, right?
I would think.
Now, when you join one of these things, I make sure that you like people who are there. Make sure they're people that are serious about their businesses and sharing ideas and sharing concerns and learning from each other. I think it will not only provide you with the motivation to do things the right way, but also the knowledge to do it as well.
Yeah.
Right. That's number 1.
I agree.
Number 2 is that at one point, and especially now when you reach the $1 million, $2 million level, at this point, business owners have all these different professionals around them, right? They have a corporate attorney, they have an estate planning attorney, or they have a CPA. They probably have an accounting firm who's like a TPA firm who's handling their payroll. They have another firm who's handling their retirement plans. They might have multiple different real estate properties, so now they have a cost segregation specialist, and so forth and so on, right? So what you see, and what I see quite often, is that successful business owners now get advice in a vacuum. So they might get an advice from their estate planning attorney that's not talking to their financial advisor.
Right, which is a nightmare.
Right, who's not talking to their CPA. So these people are all giving their advice in vacuum as opposed to being one conjecture where everybody knows what's going on and everybody's bouncing ideas off of each other. So I think at that point, I truly believe that, and our firm is structured like that as well. Business owners need a quarterback.
They need a quarterback.
Whether you want to call it a quarterback or a conductor of an orchestra or whatever, it's a person or firm that has the ability and the knowledge to address all of these different areas and has enough knowledge to know how they interact with each other and then connect all the advisors together so everybo's on the same page. That is one of
I'm a believer in this.
And you've done that. I mean,
I have done that.
Even before you and I met, I know your history, so you've done a lot of it because you were making sure the advisors talk to each other, right? It just happens when you met that we did some other things as well. But
I was trying to. I mean, I think like this, the whole purpose of this podcast, the Entrepreneurial Journey, is to help guys make $1 million, right? And so for me, it's like this is a time to share, and this is a time to dive deep, and this is a time to really help somebody take their business to the next level. And so like I'm open and honest about where I've come from and what I do on this show. I think that's a great thing about the show. Part of that was I had an attorney. I had this idea, like I've got an attorney, I've got a CPA, I've got a wealth manager, I'm doing things right. Okay. And then, I met up with you, and it was a whole different scenario. It was like, okay, I'm missing a lot. And that for me, as an entrepreneur, as somebody trying to grow, as someone trying to build my business, I'm good at my craft. I'm really good at my craft. I believe that. I believe that you're really good at your craft. And that's the thing, is that I don't have to be an expert in what you bring to the table. And what I found in working with you and your team was, hey, Dave, I can help you. Let me break down everything that you're doing. And it's going to cost a fee, but we're going to look at, your contracts, and we're going to look at your 401k, and we're going to look at your investments, and we're going to look at your real estate, and we're going to look at your business, and we're going to look at all these different pieces of your business. And then we're going to provide you with a, I don't know how many 10-page memorandum on where you're missing and where you can be doing things better. And so, it's kind of like, okay, well, 10 grand to take a look at what I'm doing, or 20 grand or 50 grand or 100 grand, whatever it is, doesn't matter depending on the complexity of the deal. Like, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, is that worth it to me? And I said, yeah, this is worth it to me. And then I said, okay, we went through that. And then it was like my eyes started to open up, and I started to see all of these holes in my business. And then what I loved about the approach that you put in place was, it's not forcing me to do anything. It's not saying, hey, Dave, you've got to sign up with this 401k. It's, here's a strategy. Here's a roadmap. Here's things we can accomplish this year, the following year, the next year. And that helps keep me like focused, where I'm not trying to bite off 50 things at once. And then what I really appreciate is the fact, like, oh, you don't have a CPA, let me bring in a CPA. Oh, you don't have a 401k guy, let me bring in a 401k guy. And, oh, you don't have a captive insurance guy, here's a captive insurance guy. So that you've got people who understand how to work with high net worth individuals. You're bringing the right pieces of the puzzle to the table. For me, that's amazing, because like, I would literally sit here and I would literally be on Google looking at reviews.
Sure. And then we're talking about, first, I appreciate all that you said, right? And you're a prime example of somebody who always wants to learn and wants to explore and wants to research, right? And wants to just be more efficient. But we're going back to the topic of time, right? So how do you actually find time to do all of that? I don't care who you are as a business owner. There's no way you have enough time to learn individually all those different aspects, right? So by being in front of somebody, it doesn't have to be us. I mean, there are a few other firms who do the same thing across the United States. But being able to find a quarterback who will come in and introduce you to these aspects, find the holes, not only in your business, but also your life strategy as well. And then plug in the right players, and then making sure they all work in conjunction with each other. That is not only efficient and time saving, right? But it will be incredible from the perspective of future cash efficiency or even profitability for your business as well. So I you asked initially, what are people missing? Well, what we find is successful business owners miss that, right? What I find that people who are trying to get to the first million or so are missing something forcing them to find the time to work on their business, which I think those groups that we discussed would be an excellent avenue to do something like that.
They do.
Right.
I agree. I think that's key. And I think finding that quarterback, and, you say a few people do that. And I think that I would agree, a few people do it. But there's so many wealth managers. There's a wealth manager on every corner. And you go in their office and they say, I got $2 billion under management.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
All right.
So I think you just brought up there's a misnomer, but there's a difference between a run-of-the-mill financial advisor, right?
Yep.
And I shouldn't say run-of-the-mill. I should say investment advisors, investment managers, financial planners, right? A lot of them serve. I mean, there's a lot of good ones, right? Majority of them handle people's financial plans, and they handle investments for individuals, right?
Right.
There are only few that will have the ability to handle businesses from multiple different aspects that the business needs, right?
Right.
So then you're talking really more of a comprehensive, for the lack of a better word, we'll call ourselves wealth managers, but it's way more than that, because you're talking about legacy and exits and tax planning and money management and all of the above, right? So how do you find those? I say there's few of them around the country that I know are really good ones. I consider us to be one of the top ones as well, but ask around or contact us. If we can't do it, we'll introduce you to the right ones, And
I think that's where, the name of your business is, Ascent Wealth Strategies. And I think on the logo, there's a picture of a mountain.
Yeah,
right.
Ascent. How do you ascend to those upper levels, upper echelons? How do you?
Yeah.
And then once you ascend, how you protect everything you've created? I mean, those are
the protection piece is huge, and protection from divorce. Right. This happens all the time.
Sure. I would. Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
I think protection. It's not just divorce, right? But okay, I've built a legacy, right? I have one or multiple different businesses. I have all this real estate now, right? On a side. I have multiple streams of revenue, multiple streams of income coming to me, right? How do I now protect all of that from somebody coming in and just, whether it's through, living in a litigious society or a divorce,
right,
or even something happening to me, and how do I protect my family?
Lawsuits, car accidents, right, heart attacks.
And all of that ties into that planning as a successful business owner, into how do I asset protection while I'm still alive, do asset protection, and then how do I do the proper legacy planning also while I'm still alive, but also when I'm gone. That's what it means. How do you protect
and
your
that
business?
sounds to me like generational wealth.
Well,
how am I creating generational wealth? When I'm talking about legacy, I'm like, hey, my kids are going to be taken care of.
My kids, it's not only that. I mean, when you do it right, you can actually plan for the next 5 generations, more than that.
5 generations.
Right. I mean, you can literally set things up in your legacy plan in a way that you control the distribution of the estate for next 300 years if you want. Right.
Yeah, that's like
you
Rockefeller type stuff,
right?
Right?
It's building dynasties, right?
Right.
In some ways, right? And most of us don't think in that way anyhow. But what I encourage business owners to do is that you have a successful business with a great stream of revenue right there. Learn now how to make sure that that's passed on legacy-wise in appropriate manner. Because if you don't do it correctly, then you ultimately, the structure, but if you do it correctly, then you're going to start changing some of the structures within your business. You're going to learn how to discount the value of your shares of the stock. You're going to learn how to gift that in a proper manner. You're going to learn how to set up really good irrevocable, or some people call them dynasty irrevocable trusts that will do that kind of stuff, and how to structure a holding company that will move into that direction. It will force you to start doing things within a structure of your business that you've never done before, that will allow you to not only enjoy the fruits of your labor in a more tax efficient manner while you're alive, but will allow your legacy to last for as long as you want to.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, because a lot of people are just, they're thinking, gosh, am I going to be dependent on Social Security? What's my exit? And, one of the things I think happens is so many people view their business as worth, millions of dollars, but it's probably not worth millions of dollars. Just because they invested the time in it and the energy in it doesn't mean they have the profits to get that type of exit. Yeah,
you constantly find business owners who think they're actually worth a couple of $1 million, and then they try to actually sell the business, and they find out that the real market value of their business is a couple $100,000.
And it's disappointing.
And they're thinking, oh my God, right? What do I do now? Well, now I got to work for, until I'm 70, 80, maybe forever.
That's why you need multiple strategies.
Exactly right. You need to not only multiple, but you need to understand what comes into the valuation of your business way before you're even going to exit at one point, right?
Yeah.
So what is that? So how do you then build the business value? Right.
So what risk management techniques do successful entrepreneurs employ to navigate the uncertainties of recession and protect their investments? What are the best practices here?
Well, another loaded question, huh?
I love the loaded questions, man. It's not a fun time unless we're loading the questions.
That's funny. But because loaded from the perspective, there's so many different things we can do, and depending on what you're trying to achieve, right? But let's look at this from this perspective. I think what's the title of the podcast today? I think, how do you build wealth during recession, right?
Yeah.
So I know we've talked about other things as well, but that's
we get off topic. That's okay. We have a good time.
Yeah, that's fine. So let me discuss this. I think it's a misnomer for people to think that they can build wealth during recession unless they're set up to do so prior to recession. I think it's an important notion for everybody to understand. You know, here, you're going to look back. You can expect that probably every 10 years or so, we're going to have 1 or 2 recessions.
Yep.
Just look at the last 20 years. I mean,
Yep.
right, we had a dot-com thing, right, in late 90s, early 2000s, right? Then we have a 2008, huge real estate deal, right? Recession caused by all kinds of different things and credit swaps and so forth and so on. And now we had, 2020, 21, 22 caused really by pandemic and everything that came out of business closures and so forth and so on, right? So, but expect that every 10 years or so, we'll have 1 or 2 recessions, right? So how do you take opportunities, advantage of opportunities that will show themselves during the recessions? Well, most people think, well, okay, I'm in a recession right now, business is suffering. How do you even think about building wealth? You can't. Think about building wealth and setting your business up or fortifying your business when things are good.
Right.
Because if you learn how to set aside the appropriate amount of cash, if you learn how at that point to have multiple different streams of revenue, if you learn how to have multiple different types of assets, any liquid assets, right? If you learn how to be more efficient, not only from the tax perspective, okay, but also efficient in your business, lean efficient, let's say, right? Then what happens is that when the recession hits, number one, you are not going to be losing your business because you have all these other things foundationally built. Number two, now you're at the advantage compared to everybody else because now you can deploy those assets and the cash in a manner that other can't. So whether it's at that point you decide that you're going to invest your business because business is slow, maybe you're going to have some more time to invest in the technology. Maybe at that point you will think of, well, there are businesses who are really struggling, so I'm going to take them over. I'm going to do some M&A stuff, right?
Right.
Maybe at that point you notice that the market is struggling. There's not enough businesses in a specific niche market because they're going out of business. So you're going to say, you know what? I'm going to deploy assets right here. I'm going to expand revenue. We're going to open up another avenue paths, right, in the new markets, right? You can do any of that kind of stuff, right? And by the way, some of the major companies, that's how they continue to thrive. I mean, Apple, Starbucks,
Right.
Domino's. Even JP Morgan, right? I mean, they bought Bear Stearns during the last recession, right? I mean, there are multiple examples how, well, let's talk about those. So what did Apple do in the dot-com, right? Bust. Well, that Apple did, they had enough cash that they decided during the dot-com bust that they're going to put their cash into a new product. So what did they come up with? iPad. Not the iPad, but the iPod. Yeah.
Right.
They came up with the iPod. And iPod then went to iPad and iPhone and the Apple Store.
It changed everything.
It changed the world.
It changed music.
Right. So where are we at? This was only 20 years ago.
Right.
They did that in the middle of a dot-com
Right.
bust, right? Starbucks in the last one.
Yeah.
What did Starbucks do? Well, while in 2008, when there was such a deep recession across the globe, Starbucks decided to deploy their cash internationally. U.S. economy slowed down. We had some other economies that were actually still doing pretty. So they deployed a bunch of cash in China and in India. Open up all kinds of new stores.
Oh, so yeah, global.
Global. So when we actually came out of recession, guess what? There are hundreds of new stores everywhere.
Right.
Domino's Pizza. You know what the Domino's Pizza did? Domino's Pizza decided that in the middle of the recession, they're going to invest in technology. So they put tons of money in putting together the whole online ordering system. That when the recession was over, that allowed them to propel Domino's is a global brand nowadays.
Biggest pizza chain in the world.
Exactly right. And not only that, but some of the in the past 15 years, one of the best performing sort of stocks.
Yeah.
Steady. I mean, it's people don't know that.
Domino's is continuing to innovate. They've even got a deal now, like support your local community snow removal company, and because we want pizza delivered fast while it's snowing, and they will give grants to cities to help them
Right.
do better snowplowing. Like they're doing more than just, delivering pizza.
So my point, what are they doing right now, right? I mean, we've been in sort of recession for the past 2.5 years, right? With however you want to define the recession. But so Domino's is now putting their money in local communities through different items, like such as grain,
Right.
building their presence again locally.
Right.
And they do that across the globe as well.
And they're making sure people get their pizza.
Yeah. Which
Right?
is the bottom line. Right?
I mean, yeah, it is, but they do it in a way that's not just the traditional pizza delivery driver, right? They're thinking outside of the box. They're creative. They're innovative. They're disruptive.
Totally agree. I think that's a great word, disruptive.
Yeah.
So the original how we started on this path was, how do you build wealth in recession? And the point again, and given these examples, is that you start understanding how do you structure your business in a way that it's so fortified and so ready. So when the next recession hits, now you can deploy the cash.
That's right.
And you can deploy your assets in a manner that but other businesses cannot.
Right.
That then even fortifies you better in those 1, 2, 3 years of recession, that when you come out of it, now your multiplier on your investments is not 1x or 2x. Now it's 10x.
Right. And there's very few companies that are doing that. And you've mentioned, some of the biggest names in business, Apple, Starbucks, Domino's, but along that same breath, you could mention 3 companies that didn't preserve their cash, that didn't protect themselves. You could look at Blockbuster, you could look at Kodak, the film company. You could look at the picture film company. You could look at Borders Books, just off the top of my head, Circuit City, like those companies. They didn't really follow this plan of, protecting the house, as I'll call it.
And also not only that, but also they didn't have the vision. They were, a lot of them were over leveraged, so they couldn't shift. They didn't have enough cash to shift where the market was going. That was number one. Number two is also they didn't have a vision of where the market was going as well. Right. So, but even if they had the vision, they didn't have enough cash to deploy to actually go there. Some of our, this just reminded me on some of the opportunities that, we work with a lot of very successful construction companies. Yeah. From very successful general contractors to real estate developers to concrete guys to project management, construction guys, and very successful. Some of the most successful real estate developers I'm thinking of right now, in 2008, when everything was crashing, these guys had enough cash or had enough access to cash. They were buying up land left and right.
Right.
And as soon as that was over, a couple of years later, right? First, the value of the land skyrocketed, but now they also had all this land available to them that at the very low interest rates, they could actually now borrow even more money, right? To build on this land. And then what happened to real estate prices after that? Skyrocketed, right? So some of these guys went from nothing to be worth $100, $200 million in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But they were fortified enough, they had enough cash or access to cash at the time when everybody was struggling to recognize the right opportunity.
Right.
And that is the secret of, to me, that is the secret of being ready, of being able to do a 10x on your business.
Yeah.
When nobody else is.
Yeah. You've got to have the cash to deploy. You've got to be fortified. You've got to put those things together. As we bring this thing in for a landing, what is one mistake, and if this is a loaded question, I apologize, but what if there's one mistake that you see entrepreneurs making? What is it, and what would be the solution that you'd provide?
I think we already covered a lot of them, but I will go back to the one that you started this session with, the time and the vision. You have got to, as a business owner, whether you're successful or you're just trying to reach certain goals, to whatever you define your success to be, you have got to find the time to work on your business as opposed to just in the business.
Yeah.
Don't get caught up on a day-to-day. Where's the new client going to come from? I got to deal with this employee right here. You know what our accounts receivables, payables. We have issue here. We have issue here. Putting out the fires. And the bigger you are, the more fires there are.
Right.
Right. You have got to very seriously sit down and say, listen, I've got to find time to work on a business, understand my vision, understand what I'm trying to achieve, understand not only how to fortify my business, but how to increase the valuation of my business for the future exit. And the way to do that is, like we talked about, get together with other like-minded people who are business owners at your level. They're doing that. It's going to force you to do it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
If you're already successful, then find people who can connect all those dots, teach you some new things that you don't have time to research anymore, right?
Yep.
And then trust somebody to connect those dots for you. I think that's a key component of learning how to grow your empire, if you want.
I think so too. That's fantastic stuff. So what we've learned today is we've got to be tax efficient. We've got to have cash. We've got to constantly be exploring ways to protect our assets. We've got to have a vision for our exit. And listen, we've got to prepare to invest. And we've got to prepare to deploy cash when things are bad. And we can do that by following those steps. And I think this is fabulous. You are one of those guys. You are one of those quarterbacks that can help people take their business to the next level. If somebody wants to learn more, if they want to reach out to you, what is the very best way for somebody to get a hold of you or your team?
Sure. And I appreciate that. You can go on our website, which is ascentwealthstrategies.com. We write weekly blogs on all kinds of different topics. I mean, you learn from credit shelter trusts and irrevocable trusts to, how to buy a plane on a tax efficient basis to just simple stuff. Right. What is the best retirement plan for the businesses and so forth and so on, right? I think there's probably 50, 60, 70 blogs on our site under resources. You can read those. Follow us on LinkedIn. We're very active on LinkedIn. Every time we write a new blog, which is weekly, we'll release it to all our followers on a LinkedIn. You can read all of that. You can contact us through LinkedIn. You can contact us through our website if you want to. I implore you just to read, learn more, and if you feel you're ready, talk to us. If we can help you, we'll send you to the right place. After 30 years, I think I know sort of the best players across the country for different things. If we can't help you, we'll send you to somebody who can.
You know somebody who can.
Yeah, who can. But that's what I would suggest people do.
Awesome. So listen, if you're looking to follow Boris on LinkedIn, if you're looking to connect with him on LinkedIn, just type his name out. Is that exactly how it's spelled, in the header for the show? Take a look, check out their website, give us a like on Facebook, give us a like on LinkedIn. If you like this show, give it a share. If you liked it, if you had a great time with it, we are back the same time every single week, 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every single week. This has been an absolutely fabulous call, an absolute education. Take these things, put them into your business, and listen, do yourself a favor and reach out to Boris and his team. That is seriously a life-changing move for you as an entrepreneur, even if you're not an entrepreneur, if you're an executive, if you're an employee, whatever it is. These guys can help you, take you where you need to go. And if they're not the right fit, they'll find the right fit for you. So, Boris, listen, thank you so much for being on the call. It's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate your time today.
Same here, Dave. Thanks for having me, and hope it was a great show for you.
It was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. There's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Introducing the all-new Western Enforcer V-Plow. Engineered with all the features, efficiency, and performance of full-size Western V-Plows, built specifically for your half-ton truck. For more information, visit westernplows.com.